I hate you so much. This is recorded, right?
It is.
Yeah. I knew as soon as you put the microphone closer to my face that you were recording.
We're just gonna get these waves louder.
You're not subtle.
I used to think I was, like, subtle, but boy, am I wrong. I wear my heart on my sleeve.
Yeah. I wasn't listening to you. I was blocking a bot on Tumblr. Sorry.
If ever there was a better example of our friendship,
I am deeply ashamed.
This is gonna be the intro.
Woo. Oh, sorry, buddy.
That's okay. Just something to talk to my therapist about.
I'm so sorry. I'm so tired.
Good start, everyone.
Oh, I'm crying. And it has nothing to do with any of the fics we read.
Nope.
Oh, okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fic List.
What is sure to be an exciting, dynamic, well thought out episode.
It should be really great. What are we talking about, Alan?
Okay.
Is this what I think it is? It is.
Yeah, so it's our Thanksgiving episode.
Wow!
Gobble gobble.
Gobble gobble. I grew up with turkeys in my backyard. That's not a metaphor. I mean that literally.
I don't know what to do with that.
There were just turkeys that grew up in my backyard.
Did you ever feel guilty during Thanksgiving?
A little bit.
Did you guys kill the turkeys in your
No,
backyard?
every year my dad made a joke that we were going to go out and kill a turkey and eat it. And then my mom would remind him that wild turkeys are too gamey. And so we didn't. But all of the turkeys live in the woods behind my house. And the funny thing about turkeys that people don't realize is that they sleep in trees, but they can't fly. So they jump up the branches of the trees. And
Really?
And then they settle, and then they fall asleep. And then they fall out of the branch because they are asleep. So you would just wait, and so you just hear... and then it would jump back up. And then like a couple hours later, you hear... And it was awesome.
Incredible.
Yeah.
That is my favorite turkey fact now.
Yeah. Anyway.
So...
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving,
That's the episode.
everyone.
The whole episode.
So, we're talking Thanksgiving. That's our general tag. And what's our AU this week, Erin?
Our AU, otherwise known as an alternate universe, is Librarian AU.
Yes!
How do you feel about Librarian AU?
I'm going to be deadly honest with you, Erin. When I was a boy, when I was but a wee lad...
So, like 3 days ago.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
First of all, you ignore me, then you're going to insult me.
I'm so sorry.
Woo. When I was a wee lad, and in school, they always ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, oh, a lawyer, a doctor, a veterinarian, an astronaut. I always said librarian.
That says so much about you as a person.
It was my biggest dream.
That tracks.
And, to this day, there are some times when I'm, sitting at my desk at work and I'm like, I could quit. I could just go, I can open my own little bookstore. I could just live among books. And I think, honestly, at some point I probably will.
Honestly, you could.
Yeah, I think I will.
You have the skill set for it in terms
sweet.
of, admin. You totally could. And you read a lot, and, you have enough of a, wide base of knowledge. Yeah, you could pull that off.
So, I was ridiculously excited when we were we're going to do
Nice.
Librarian AU. What about you?
I was excited, but probably not as much as you were. I think Librarian AUs are really great. I don't tend to read them. It's kind of like a Cinderella AU for me, where, if you find a good one, I'm into it.
Ooh.
But it's not something I actively seek out so much, and I don't know that they always work.
Right.
So I think they're really... I was excited to find one. I was more excited to read yours for me than I was to have to find one, because I didn't really have any laying around in, my back pocket.
Right.
But I don't dislike them by any stretch. Yeah. And I think they can be really, really sweet and really fun. And
yeah.
Some of them could be really silly and yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot you can do with them, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
But why don't we launch into our first tag, our general tag, our festive tag.
Thanksgiving! Wow.
Boy, we tired.
Yeah, we a little punchy. So Thanksgiving. Do you want to start?
Sure.
Okay.
So, you sent me Plenty to be thankful for. It's on Archive of Our Own. It is written by AL_EX_AN_D_ER_Hamiltons.
Not meant to be read out loud.
Nope.
By any stretch.
Not even close. It is a new fandom. It is Schitt's Creek.
New fandom!
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
I saw this and I was like, I'm so proud of her.
I tried really hard.
Thank you.
I spent a lot of time in the Schitt's Creek fandom trying to find a Thanksgiving thing because I was like, I have to or Alan might literally kill me. And also I've fallen pretty deeply in love with David and Patrick from Schitt's Creek. I'm going to shame myself here for a minute. I have only, I haven't watched the show in full.
Aaron.
I've watched about 8 episodes of the first season, and then I've skipped through the rest of the show, only watching the clips of David and Patrick.
Aaron.
Because I'm garbage. I just really wanted a happy queer couple, guys.
Oh.
That's all I wanted. And
Was
that's
there
what
not
I got.
Was there no compilation on YouTube or something?
Well, that's where it started.
Oh,
was
I
a
see.
compilation on YouTube, and then I was like, well, I would like to get a little bit more context, but I'm not willing to commit to watching 3 seasons of this right now. So I just watched some of the, like, I went through the Netflix queue. I will eventually read all, like, or watch all of it. Dan Levy has my heart in his hands.
I've yet to watch this, so I'm judging you very harshly, but...
Oh, that's fair. But I just really like this pair. Because they're just a super sweet, normal couple. And that's what's really great about them.
I love that.
Yeah.
So this is, if you couldn't tell, it's a David and Patrick coupling. Mm-hmm. The summary reads, Patrick is missing his family on his first Thanksgiving away from home, and David wants to make it right. That's a good summary. Yep. This is really short and sweet.
Yep.
It was like a nice little slice of apple pie.
Uh-huh.
So it opens with Patrick talking about how this is his favorite time of year, which honestly, if there's anyone on this planet who tells me that the fall, like the holiday season is not their favorite, I can't associate with you.
You unfollow them.
Yeah. Like if someone is like, oh, I love the summer, like being at the beach, I will literally, I can't associate with you.
Yeah, I know, I'm the same way. That's why we're friends.
Exactly.
We both like sweaters in cold weather.
We are both in sweatery right now. Yep.
I was so ready to take out this sweater. This is an
good.
Irish roll sweater. It's scratchy as fuck, but I don't care.
Yeah. It looks good.
Thanks.
So, yeah, Patrick's talking about how it's his favorite time of the year. And then it just kind of goes into how grateful he is to be in Schitt's Creek and, like, to have found David. And, like, he's grateful for all these things. But he's really missing his family. I was going to ask you, do you know why...
I mean, kind of. I know that he was engaged to a woman, and Rachel, and he was very close to his family and kind of had the idyllic sort of like small town life, and then decided that really wasn't authentic to who he was, up and left, basically just kind of like booked it out of his hometown, and then moved to Schitt's Creek to basically start anew. And he started out by working for Ray, who is the town sort of like everyman. So he's mostly a real estate agent, but he also has all of these like side schemes going on all the time. So he lived at Ray's house and like worked for him as a clerk. Mm-hmm. And that's how he met David, because David came in to get paperwork to start the general store. He wanted to like start his own business. Basically, Patrick made fun of him the whole time because David didn't really have a business plan. He was like, well, it's more of like an experience, and like it's like a coffee shop, but we won't have coffee, and like I just want people to like really get the vibe, you know? Because David comes from a lot of money, but not a lot of like pragmatism.
I see.
And Patrick was like, okay, so I can't put that on a federal income like identification number form. You need to give me like words.
Yep.
And that's when they kind of started liking each other, and it was really cute. So I don't fully know Patrick's story beyond that, but I know that he lives apart from his family and everybody he kind of grew up with.
Gotcha.
Because of that.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Cool. I did not have my context, but I was just like, we're going to go with it anyway.
Yep.
So yeah, Patrick is homesick and David wants to help. And so I get the feeling that David's family, like his family's not the traditional family.
No, not at all.
Like they didn't have a Thanksgiving where they sit around and like.
Do you know the context of the show?
Nope.
Do you know like the premise of the show? Okay, so the very first thing that happens in the show is that the Rose family, David's family, is like an uber rich, crazy millionaire family based on his father ran Rose Video, which is essentially like Blockbuster,
Oh,
and made all of his money.
No.
And then in the first episode, you basically open onto this scene of all of their belongings getting repossessed
No.
because they had trusted all of their money to their brother-in-law who embezzled it all and left them with nothing. The only thing that the government allowed them to keep because it was so useless was ownership rights of a town called Schitt's Creek that they had bought for David's birthday when he was 13 as a joke. So the government, they were like, well, what are we going to do? Like, we don't have anywhere to live. Like, you're taking all our stuff. And they were like, well, you can actually live in Schitt's Creek for, like, nothing. So go live there.
Yeah. 100%.
In the shitty motel and, like, regroup. So they move into this shitty hotel in Schitt's Creek, and they have to learn how to be, like, real people.
I love it.
And it's incredible. It's an incredible premise for a show.
God, I have to watch it.
Yeah, I think we should watch it maybe together and, like, try to, like, get through it.
That'd be fun.
Because, yeah, the first season that I've watched so far is really delightful, but David's character is very, like, there's a lot of sort of, like, cringy moments.
Oh, no.
Where it's hard because you can see him trying really hard, but is, like, struggling, and he's but he's very, like, he's not quite the gay stereotype, but he pushes some of those buttons and, like, has fallen into a version of himself to please others and is still really figuring out who he is.
Wow.
And
Retweet.
Patrick is really the first person who sees him and is like, no, you're silly, but I like you because you cute.
Cute.
And David is the first person who allows Patrick to, like, come out, really. Like, Patrick wasn't out before David.
Aww.
So David allows him to be himself, too, which is really nice.
You speak so eloquently for a show you've only, like, glimpsed at.
I get so much context from fanfiction, guys. Maybe this is just the fanfic dynamic. I don't know.
Right. In the show, they hate each other.
In the
it's
show,
just, like,
they're,
real
like, not
punchy.
this cute at all.
That's
but
funny.
No, it's really cute. And I've, like, kind of... I've seen most of their interactions together, and I think that rings true for what
that makes
they're
sense.
like. Yeah.
So Patrick is homesick, and he's like trying to arrange these apples in what were David's directions? He was like, oh yeah, stack them in an effortless but neat way.
Per David's completely unclear instructions.
And so these apples just keep falling every time he stacks them, and so at some point while he's like picking them off the ground, he just sits against the counter and is sad and holds this apple.
He's like on the floor.
Yep. And David comes out and is like, oh, hello? Anyone here?
Yeah.
And Patrick just holds the apple up above the counter and is like, down here.
Here we are.
David, like, leans over and asks, hi, what are we doing on the floor?
Yeah, you okay?
Yeah.
Was the apple mean to you?
Feeling sorry for ourselves.
Oh.
Oh, man. Did the apple say something mean to you? Yeah. And then Patrick's like, I miss my mom's apple pie. And it's so sweet. David comes around and, like, they sit close, like, super close. And then David offers up, like, well, why don't we have, like, a Friendsgiving here at the store? Mm-hmm. And it's apparently out of character for David to do, like...
Yeah.
Because, again, he doesn't celebrate Thanksgiving. It's not, like, a...
Yeah, he doesn't celebrate. He has a good amount of social anxiety.
Oh.
And he also is not a particularly generous in the traditional sense kind of person. He has a hard time thinking about, like, what other people would necessarily want or need in a given moment because he's not used to having to care.
Yeah.
So he's really learning how to be sort of thoughtful in that way. He's naturally not a bad person, but he hasn't had to think about other people that way before.
That's wonderful.
So he's, like, figuring it out.
Oh my god. I'm gonna have to reread this. Probably during Thanksgiving after I've just stuffed myself with turkey.
Yeah, and be like, oh, what else?
I just need, like, a little treat, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's what this is. After that, like, Patrick is so excited, and David's like, you should call your mom and get that apple pie recipe. And then it becomes very, like, slice of life.
Yeah.
They go apple picking. And David dressed to look cute, but it's like in fingerless gloves.
So he's really cold.
Yeah, it's just freezing.
And Patrick was like, I told you to put a coat on. So good.
Yep. And then they talk about how they're going to need to share the pie. They don't want to share the pie, so they're going to make a second pie.
One of David's defining characteristics is that he, like, eats his feelings all the time, whether they're good or bad. He just eats them. So David and food is kind of a running thing.
I love it. And then they're at the Thanksgiving dinner, and this is like a moment where, because I didn't really know anyone, I didn't get that, like, warm and fuzzy. I got the warm and fuzzy feeling, like the ambiance was, it's really lovely, and, like, it talks about, Jocelyn, Ronnie, and Moira were gathered in the corner, apparently discussing their new Jazzagal show. Johnny was looking flustered, trying to explain something about the motel's water heater to Roland. Right. Stevie, wine-drunk and misty-eyed, sat at one end of the table, taking it all in. So these are kind of like details that are, I think, lovely when you know the characters. Yeah. And like, oh, it's nice to see everyone together and that kind. So I didn't get that layer of depth.
Yeah.
But that's strictly because I'm not familiar with the show.
Yeah.
But I got like the warmth, and it was nice to see everyone around. Yeah. And David insisted on a neutral tones dress code for dinner, which no one but him, Patrick, and Moira abided by.
Yeah, which is hilarious.
Incredible.
Yeah, that's like something David would do. He's such a nudge about certain things, and everyone else around him is like, no, baby. Just like, you're just ridiculous, and it's fine. But Patrick tries. Bless him.
I feel like this is written very like, I won't say in character, because I feel like we don't spend a lot of time with the character, so we can't ever really tell how in character it is, but a lot of the choices that they make is very on brand for them.
Yeah, and I think this feels like a very authentic telling of a moment in the show that got a little bit glossed over, I think. In season 5, Patrick comes out to his parents for the first time as part of like an actual, like David throws him a surprise birthday party. Cute. Invites his parents to come down for the weekend.
Boy, David.
Which is a great idea in theory, but he didn't ask ahead of time if Patrick was out, and then he was like, oh no. David's father accidentally outs him before Patrick can say anything, and David knows, but Patrick doesn't. And he spends the whole time trying to like placate the whole situation, and it turns out Patrick's parents really are super cool, and they're not mad at all. Yay. It's totally fine. But David is like, okay, we let him come out to you even though you know, because this is important for him. Like, don't take this from him. And they're like, okay, it's great. And it's told in a comedic way, but it's actually really nice.
I'm gonna cry.
It's really sweet. And Patrick and David earlier in the conversation where David realizes his mistake and Patrick is like, oh God. And because David has to tell him that his parents are there. Yeah. And he was like, I made a mistake. I didn't think this through. Patrick is like, I was going to tell them at Thanksgiving, but then I was so wrapped up with your family and then it didn't happen. And it's just been like, there's never been a good time, and I'm not ashamed of you, but like, oh my God. And David's like, no, this is your thing. Like, I'm okay. If you need me to just be your business partner for the weekend, I can do that. Aww. And Patrick's like, no, I owe it to us to tell them the truth. I went on a whole rant on Twitter about this because this is who I am as a person. Of course. That scene to me, I was like, this is the difference between a show that is written by like straight people and a show that is written by a queer person.
Right.
Because Dan Levy is, not to diminish him at all, he's an incredible creative genius. His writing is good because it is good. It's not because he's gay, but the authenticity of the storyline, and also he made a very conscious decision that his characters were never going to suffer because they were gay or queer in any way. He was like, no, they're just going to be accepted for who they are, and that's what it is. And we're not going to have like homophobia on my show. Yes. We aren't going to have queer baiting. We aren't going to have any of that. And I think that really is owed to the fact that he is of the community.
I love him.
And that is why I was like, after all of the pain I've put Alan through.
I was about to say, thank God you sent me this, because oh my God, you have hurt me so bad.
I'm going to give him really sweet queer narrative.
I'm gonna latch onto this.
You should.
I'm going to hold on to this.
It's really good. It's very helpful.
I can't wait. This is my next show.
I think we should also get Dan Levy on this podcast.
Dan Levy, come.
Oh, I love him.
Not on the same episode as Hale Appleman, though, because then they'll fall in love.
We're just going to be like, no, come back.
It's not fair.
This didn't work out the way we planned. No, I would love to talk to Dan Levy, particularly about this show. And like, he just signed a whole big new deal with a whole bunch of new shows. And I really hope he keeps up this sort of like, he chose to end Schitt's Creek where it ends, which is fantastic. And I really hope that he gets to keep having creative control in the way that he does, because particularly for queer folk, like his story writing is really important.
Amazing.
And it's really well done.
So the fic ends later at night after the Thanksgiving dinner, and they're all cuddled up in Patrick's bed at Ray's. And Patrick's talking about how what we forgot to do is like go around the room and say what we're grateful for. And Patrick says a whole bunch of things that I didn't understand.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm grateful for your lack of knowledge in filing. I'm grateful for your lack of knowledge in filing out incorporation paperwork, which now I understand.
That should say filling out incorporation paperwork. That's a typo.
Well, Rip in peace.
Yep.
I'm grateful for Ray double booking himself. I'm grateful for guests who leave their drugs behind in the motel.
Yep.
I'm grateful for your family forgetting your birthday.
Yeah. All of those are, like, opportunities where they got to, like, get closer.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Actually, I'm grateful for your family forgetting your birthday is their first date.
Oh,
which is really cute.
That's so awful, but cute.
Yeah, the family forgot his kind of forgot his birthday, and Patrick was like, well, why don't we go to dinner? As, like, because they're business partners. And it's just like, well, I'll take you out. And Dave was like, you really don't have to do that. And he's like, no, I want to. Like, it'll be great. They go to dinner, and at the end of it, Patrick drives him home, and David leans in to kiss him in the car. And Patrick is like, thank you. I didn't have the guts to do that.
Oh.
And it was just, oh, God. It's so good. It's so
I'm a sobbing mess already.
It's so good.
We're 20 minutes into this podcast,
I'm really excited to, like, actually watch the show. Because I think it's going to be really good.
We're gearing ourselves up. We're going to get there.
I think you have to go through some shit to get there, though, first.
Fuck me.
It'll be good.
I always thought it'll be funny.
Yeah. You know where it's going, and it's a good, where it's going. That's true. As opposed to other shows that will remain nameless.
That will remain nameless in this episode.
Until later.
Nope. We won't talk about it. And that's where it ends, basically. They say Happy Thanksgiving, and they're all cute in bed, and it's the most adorable thing in the world. I thought this was a really good pick. It was I think the shortest. No, it's the second shortest. Yeah. I think it's the second shortest fic we've ever sent each other, 2,000 words. So I was like, oh, this is interesting and out of character for Aaron.
I know.
I was grateful.
Yeah. I was a little sick of sending you 20 chapter fics.
Thank you.
Because I was like, I don't want to read another 20 chapter fic today, so I'm not going to send Alan one.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, boy, this was wonderful. My only thing would be there. So the author has a 4-part series called This Year's Love, and each part is like a seasonal standalone story that's loosely canon compliant and meant to take place within the first year of their relationship. So I feel like this is very much like a it's gonna go into like gamer modes. Like, do you know what a DLC is? Like downloadable content?
No.
An expansion pack, if you will.
I know what an expansion pack is in cards.
So kind of like that. It feels like an add-on to something, to like a greater narrative. So I wish that this was a little more fleshed out and like, and this is not like to the author. I think the author wrote what they wanted to write.
Right.
This is more like, I would have craved a little more Thanksgiving.
It's almost what I would consider like an episode tag or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
No, I don't know.
Do you know that frame? Okay. So in fanfic, a lot of the time, what people will do is they will take something that is mentioned or glossed over in an episode and write out what happened. Right. And that's called an episode tag.
Got it, yeah.
So that's kind of what this reads like to me, where it's like, well, we know that they had Thanksgiving together, but we don't know what it looked like or what happened in full sort of disclosure. So there's something to play with there, but it's just kind of a little bump out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I loved it. This was wonderful.
Yay.
I would say 3.6.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I feel like I'm 2 for 2 in terms of like fulfilling the holiday tag as expected. You know what I mean? I like gave you the quintessential Halloween tag, and now I've given you the quintessential Thanksgiving tag.
What was your Halloween tag? I don't even remember.
It was the one with the costumes and Quentin and Elliot and Star Wars.
Oh, that's right. The Halloween party. Yeah,
and I was like, I'm just going to lean into this.
That is, yeah, right.
2 for 2.
2 for 2. Good for you.
Yeah. All right. What did you send me?
What did I send you?
You sent me... Oh, okay. Early Worm Gets the Bird, which is a Teen Wolf fanfic.
It is.
Alan is making a face that you all can't see.
What would you describe my face as?
Shit-eating grin. So, Early Worm Gets the Bird by Joosetta, Joosetta, on Archive of Our Own. The summary, dear listeners, and it's an accurate summary, I'll tell you, is, in which Styles sends Derek a dick pic. Derek has no idea what to do and ends up having to cook Thanksgiving dinner as a result. Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. I also really like the author's note, which is, this is unbaited and also incredibly stupid. Which is, like, very self-aware and very accurate.
Love it.
I kind of thought this was great. Like,
good,
it was silly. It was fun. Yeah. Like, whatever. Who doesn't love a good, like, dick pic? Texting pic? I have a couple of those that are just, they're always really stupid and fun.
We need to add that tag to our list.
It's a great tag. So the premise is that Styles and Derek text back and forth a lot, particularly since Styles left for college. with sort of infrequent visits in between, but mostly they just send weird pictures back and forth, and it's just, like, odd stuff. And that's how they keep in touch. But it was like, all right. And Derek was like, okay, cool, a text from Styles. Like, I'll open this. He opens it, and it's a dick pic. And he's just like, what the fuck? But he also was like, okay. And he's, like, actually kind of hung. Like, yep. Okay. And so his brain breaks a little bit.
Same.
And the text accompanying it is like, all for you, big boy. And it's, like, very weird and out of character for him. And he's like, what the fuck is this shit? So he goes to Scott and is like, have you heard from Styles recently? And he's trying to figure out what this is. And he's like, I don't really know what's going on. And in this conversation, basically Scott kind of, like, maneuvers him into, not intentionally, but Derek has to, like, kind of come up with a reason why he's asking about Styles. And he's like, well, I was thinking about having the whole pack over for Thanksgiving dinner. And Scott is like, fuck yeah!
We love this.
So into it. Please feed us!
Yeah. Well, the big thing is that Derek asks, like, oh, you know, is Styles coming back for Thanksgiving? And Scott's like, well, yeah, he's coming back. Yeah. And Derek asks, oh, is he bringing back anyone?
Yeah, like, does he have a partner?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on?
And then Scott's like, no, why do you want to know if he's coming back with someone? And then Derek's like, to get a head count for when I host Thanksgiving.
He's like, I'm thinking quickly. Gotta come up with an excuse. And then he was like, well, fuck. Now I'm cooking goddamn Thanksgiving dinner for half the fucking town. Jesus. So mad.
We love it.
So, and then he was like, well, it's actually not going to be that bad. Like, other people will bring food. I have enough space. It'll be fine. Like, I'm just not super pleased about having a bunch of people in my space. I'm kind of antisocial.
Same.
So then, you know, they skip ahead a little bit. It's very sort of vignette-y at points. And it's like, Derek kept the picture. But he doesn't look at it. And I'm like, do you though? So he keeps it and he just keeps thinking about it. Like, it's kind of consuming his thoughts. And he's just like, he doesn't text back. And he doesn't acknowledge that it happened right away. And then he's like, okay, I'm going to keep it. Styles shows up at some point. Or they run into each other shopping. He's going to get the turkeys. Yes. And it's a whole thing. And he runs into Styles at the grocery store. And he's like, hey, what's up? And Derek is like, because he's like, no explanation? You're not going to explain this at all? You're not going to cop to this? And then Styles is like, all right, it's cool. You don't have to answer my question. Are you getting the turkeys? Woohoo! And Derek is like, And he just grabs some turkeys and books it.
Runs.
Derek was in such a hurry to get the fuck out of there, he totally forgot about his coupons. Which is really funny. So Lydia Martin, who's one of their friends, comes over and they, like, force Derek to clean his house. They come over and they, like, decorate and they make it look really good. And in that moment, he's talking to Lydia and he was like, has anyone sent you a dick pic? And Lydia's like, oh yeah, many, because I'm a woman and that's life.
Correct.
That's life in womanhood.
Woof.
And Derek's like, what does it mean if someone sends you a dick pic? And Lydia was like, you know exactly what it means. Stop it.
Stop it.
And he was like, well, yeah, you're right. And after that, he finally texts Styles back, like, why the hell did you send me that? And then, are you trying to drive me crazy?
Whoa! Incredible.
Which is so good. So Styles shows up, and then really early for Thanksgiving dinner, like well in advance of everybody else. And then kind of is out with it, and he's like, sorry, I didn't actually send you that picture. I was with somebody, and he was an asshole, and he sent it to you. And he sent it to a couple of people, and like, I'm sorry if it made you feel uncomfortable. And that's really a downer.
Your heart shatters
and
immediately.
You're just like, aw, buddy. And then Derek's like, oh, it's whatever, it's fine. Why did you have it in the first place? He was like, because it was pretty.
I just wanted to see what it looked like.
Yeah, and then Derek's like, okay, let's go make some cornbread. And they're like, okay. And they like go off and make cornbread. And they're like, are we good? We're good. Cool. Great. And then, you know, Styles goes off and tells some other stories about his crazy exploits in life. So, you know, everybody shows up for dinner and they have a good, like, time and it's a good whatever. They're eating, and then Derek eventually just, like, needs to take a break from all of the people who are sitting at his table and eating all the food and just being loud. It's, like, a lot of people. So he goes upstairs, and, like, he had deleted the dick pic at this point, but he looks back through all of the messages that had been back and forth between him and Styles, and there's actually quite a lot of them. Like, and he kind of hadn't realized how frequently they communicated with each other and how much it meant to him.
Right.
And it's also a lot of Styles being like, this reminds me of you, and this, I saw this today and thought of you, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Which is, like, oh. He was like, well, damn it. And so he comes back downstairs and they eat dessert, and that's a little vignette. And then they skip ahead to the football game, and it's like, who's playing again? Styles said somewhere in the last quarter. Once he had sunk so far into the sofa, he was almost horizontal. Blue ones versus greeny gold ones, Derek said, but his eyes were closed, so he couldn't be sure. Which is very Thanksgiving.
Yep.
And everybody takes a, post-dinner Thanksgiving nap, which is a time-honored tradition.
Of course.
A bunch of the, everybody's playing canasta at the table.
Cute.
And Derek was like, nah, it's a little busy. And he just goes upstairs and he finds Styles actually hanging out in his bedroom, also trying to get away from all of the noise and whatever. Mm-hmm. And Styles is like, so what did that last text of yours mean? Are you trying to drive me crazy? And Derek was like, nope, I didn't send that. Styles was like, yeah, you did.
Yeah.
And he was like, you should know exactly what I meant. And then they talked a little bit more about the guy who was an asshole and sent it out. And the guy basically thought Styles was cheating on him with Derek, right. Or at least emotionally cheating on him with Derek, and decided that he was not only going to break up with him, but he was also going to steal from him and, peace out. And Styles is like, I don't have very good taste in men, Derek. And Derek's like, okay. And Styles is like, well, except for you, I don't have very good taste in men. And then they have sex.
And then they have sex.
They have, very... it fades to black. They don't actually really show the sex, but they clearly just had sex. That's what happened. So...
Because that's what you want to do after you've had Thanksgiving dinner,
with
right?
all of your friends downstairs.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, guys, this is not appropriate.
I loved it.
So whatever. So they have sex, and it's a good time, and it's whatever. They do show a little bit of it. They do talk about it a little bit.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
They recap kind of the end of it.
Yeah, it's it's the afterglow.
Yeah, and so they do that, and then they go back downstairs, and one of their friends Lydia texts and is like, are you done fucking yet? Because we're still playing canasta, and Scott needs your help. He's really bad at it. So they come back downstairs, and they're like, cool. And they sort of vignette through, oh yeah, they've been having a lot of sex together, and their relationship is blooming, and Derek is realizing that he's really absurdly in love with Styles, and that's great, except Styles is leaving. Yeah. And that's a bummer. He's pining so much that Scott is like, just move to New York. Just be with him.
Please.
You are deeply embarrassing. He's like, I can't do that. And then in this conversation, Derek gets another text, and it's a dick pic from Styles. And, Scott leans over the phone to see, and he's like, my eyes! But Derek is like, wait, did you know that Styles was getting a job at Berkeley and moving back here? And Scott's like, I'm still traumatized from this photo, but yes, I did know that. So Styles is moving back, and it's great. And the last line is very silly, where it's like, that's so nice, I'm happy for you, Scott said, hovering again, but I still don't understand why he had to attach it to a picture of his cock. So basically, Styles is moving back to California.
Yay!
And that's the deal.
Happy endings all around.
It was very... silly and sweet.
Yeah.
And funny and whatever. It was a pretty solid fanfic.
Yay.
I really don't like Teen Wolf.
I know, Erin.
But I can overlook that. That's
Thank
okay.
You. Thank you.
This one didn't have all of the wolf dynamics and stuff in it, which
right,
is,
I think, notice that. I made sure.
Yeah, that's the stuff that bothers me. They occasionally mention things like wolfsbane and stuff, which I think is a way that they get drunk or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was fine. I would give this a solid 3.5.
Oh, good.
It was enjoyable.
Yay.
It was a Thanksgiving fic.
We love it.
They had a good time.
We had a good time.
It was all good.
Yay!
If you are somebody who likes Teen Wolf and wants to read a Thanksgiving fanfic, then this is your jam. This is it. Because it's really, It's
Can I talk about? It was between this and there was another one that was just off the rails insane. Really? It was X-Men. It was X-Men.
Ah!
And Eric and Charles, and I think the premise is that. And
I think Eric and James McAvoy.
No, that's on his character name. So I think this is one of those challenges that they put forth, and a lot of people write these. So I think it's a Craigslist ad where someone posts and in a leather jacket and hire me and I will come and wreck your Thanksgiving. Exactly.
Because there's one with Darcy Lewis and Clint Barton. I almost sent that to you, and then I was like, no, it's too much.
So I was about to send you that one too, where Eric is essentially a felon or whatnot.
Yeah.
And Charles just wants to, like, really piss off his stepfamily. It went off the rails. It was insane. Like, Charles's stepbrother is, like, chasing them with a shotgun.
Oh my
His
God.
mother's trying to seduce Eric at one point. It was crazy.
Yeah, no, the one with Darcy and Clint doesn't go that far. Darcy's family is just awful. And she's like, I want to, like, fuck shit up. And Clint is like, all right, I'm here. Amazing. Like, I have a weird checkered past and I could use some money, but I'm not actually a bad guy.
Yeah.
And Darcy's like, oh, you're actually, like, really nice.
Yep.
And basically they both try to be as, like, flagrantly awful as possible to the parents, just to, like, freak them out. And they're like, well, you know, I'm pregnant with his baby and all this kind of stuff. And it was, like, really funny.
Incredible.
But they didn't go quite as crazy, but that's funny
fair.
that both of us saw the same. We had the same idea.
Yeah.
We were like, we could go crazy with this, but we're not going to.
It's gonna, like, we want warmth and sweet. And,
I want apple pie.
Exactly. We want a slice of pie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
That was great.
Incredible. Well done.
Thank you.
Well done, everybody.
Likewise.
All right.
What's next?
Librarians!
The library.
What's really funny is that looking for tags in a certain fandom about the library is hard. Because the library is a place in that other fandom.
Listeners, you can't see, but I have my head cradled in my hands. Shaking my head.
I tried so hard.
Shaking my head.
I tried so hard not to send you another Magician's Fic, and then last night I just had to call it and send it to you, and I felt so bad, and I was like, I failed so hard.
We tried.
I did. I did send you another Magician's Fic.
You did.
Who was surprised by this? Oh yeah, no one. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
This is who I am.
No, it was wonderful.
Good, I'm glad.
Yeah.
Should we start with this, I guess, since
we're here.
Yeah.
So, you sent me Friday Evenings at the Library with Quentin, written by Alfred von Krolock.
I hope that's a reference to something.
Me too.
And not just in someone's brain.
Alfred von Krolock, won't you write in? Please tell us.
Please tell us where your username came from.
So this is Archive of Our Own. It's The Magicians. It's Quelliot.
Of course it is.
Of course it is. The summary reads, Coldwater. Coldwater? Where's that from? Well, the librarian said, most people get their last names from their parents. No, I mean, where does it originate? He said with a grin. So it's a little excerpt.
We've talked about excerpt summaries.
Yep, we have. I love, and the author's note, would it really be a Magician's fanfic if it didn't reference the finale in some sort of way?
Like, it's basically everything. It's just like,
everything.
This is my fix-it.
Exactly. Yeah, the note. Like many others, I'm destroyed by the finale. But instead of a fix-it fic, I'm going to write a bunch of AUs and stuff because I need some fluff and happiness in my life with these two. And honestly, I dig that. I think this is the first... Is this the first not, no powers or no magic?
No. The first one that I sent you with the letters back and forth was non-magical.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I didn't know them then.
But it's been quite a while since I sent that to you.
I have since then known them.
Right.
Known the characters, known the universe.
I've explained it to you
have my heart
4
ripped
times.
out of my chest. Like... ground in a little mortar and pestle and then fed back into my body.
Yike.
Yes.
That is a vivid image.
I have strong feelings about this.
Clearly.
Yeah. So, and also this is the shortest fic you've ever sent me. This, like, interesting that they're both on the same episode.
Can you tell that I was like...
Very stressed?
Yeah. I tried really hard to find you a Librarian AU.
I get it.
And eventually I was just like, I just gotta pick this one.
So, it starts, so Quentin is the librarian in this scenario.
And not a librarian in the show sense of the word, friends. A true librarian.
I don't know what that is, but we're not going to unpack that.
You don't even need to know.
Good.
It's a whole other
glad.
subplot that you don't need to know about.
What? They mentioned the mosaic. What is that again?
Oh my god. I'm gonna fucking kill
you. Listeners, let's take a shot every time I forget the mosaic timer.
Well, I'll be drunk.
Yeah. So it starts on a Friday evening, and the library's pretty slow. There's not really a ton of people. There's one person in the back who comes and studies and puts like earphones in to not hear anything. Mm-hmm. And then this very attractive man comes up to the circulation desk, and then they have that cute interaction where it's like, "Excuse me, Mister," and then Quentin's like, "Coldwater," and then the thing I just read to you.
Yeah.
So, flirting from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
So then this child runs out from behind one of the shelves, and he's asking Elliot, "Oh, did you find it yet?" And Elliot's like, "Oh, I haven't asked." because he's been flirting with Quentin.
Yeah, too busy.
Yep. Priorities.
Yep.
So then this child is like, oh, okay, I guess I have to do it. Yeah. Do you have the Percy Jackson series?
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, and Quentin's like, yeah, of course. They're back there. He writes down, like, the Dewey Decimal System notation for it.
Like the call number and stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Mm-hmm. And kid, like, runs off, doesn't need help finding them. Turns out it's Margot's child.
Yeah! Which I was like,
huh.
Wow.
Same.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. I just kind of let that roll. I actually read Margot as aromantic, and I think a lot of people in the fandom read Margot as aromantic. That is not something that is ever going to be canon or probably intentional. So reading this idea of like Margot's kid or something like that was a little out of left field for me, but it's not impossible. But it was a moment of like, what?
Oh, I'm glad because on like a base level, something about it, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Like it shook me a little. I was like,
yeah.
What? Oh, okay.
It's interesting because I actually headcanon Margot as aromantic and in some cases Alice as asexual. Which is really interesting, and we can go into that in a later date. But just so you know, like, yes, I also had that sort of moment of like, wait a minute.
Should we at this point just start a second podcast to the magicians?
About the magicians. I mean, maybe.
No, absolutely
We don't have to we don't have to get into it. But basically, yes, I also had the same moment of like, but okay.
So then Quentin asks Elliot, like, oh, Percy Jackson, did he pick that one by himself? And Elliot says, oh, no, like I was taking a myth class a year ago, and he really liked the Greek unit, so I got him the first one for his birthday, and now he really wants to read the rest. And Quentin was like, oh, well, we've got all of them in stock right now, so he can just like check them all out today. And Elliot's like, oh, well, there's kind of an issue. I don't have a library card. And Quentin's like, oh, well, okay, do you have any mailing you so I can get one for you? And he's like, oh yeah, here, I've got a letter from my school, and he gives him that, and then they have the moment where he's like, thank you, Mr. What?
What?
Which I relate to, because every now and then I'm like, what?
What? What?
What?
Thank you.
So he's like, oh, I've got your name and address, and now I just need your number. And Elliot writes it on a sticky note, and he's like, here you go. And then the kid comes back with the book, and he's like, I got him. and he slaps his library card on the counter, and he's like, here you go. And Quentin's like, I thought you said you didn't have one. And it's like, I did say that, didn't I? And then Quentin's like, would you like the sticky note with your number back, or do you want me to? And Elliot says, use it. What? You have my number now. Use it. And then, like, smiles charmingly and walks off. And it's adorable. Isn't it? It's so cute.
I said this to you, and I was like, this is the smoothest shit I've ever read.
I was like, whoa.
Yeah. I was like, oh my god.
Love it.
It made me so happy. I was like, that was so smooth, Elliot. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
I want to see where this would go. Because I think it's actually really great, but it's kind of just like a one-shot thing.
Yeah, it's very much written as like a little vignette, like here's a little moment. We get a glimpse into this universe.
Yeah.
Yeah. I loved it.
Good.
It was good. It was nice to read a Quelliot fanfic that didn't destroy me in one way or another. You're welcome. It was just like, no mention of any other reference. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, sure, Margot was a reference, but that's fine. Yeah. Like, that's all I had to know.
In some ways, this could have been anybody.
Exactly. And I kind of loved that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I was like, I have to stop breaking Alan.
How kind of you.
I really have to.
Can we talk about the additional tags? Alternate universe, non-magical. The library AU no one asked for. No, not that library.
Might continue, one shot, maybe freeform. Fluff? Question mark?
Would this be fluff airing?
Oh yeah, I think so.
Yeah?
I think it's fluff.
That's fluffy.
It's super fluffy. I think it's very, like, it's almost like lead up to fluff in a weird way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
It's like not quite the fluff part of it.
Well, can it be fluffy if they haven't established, like, a relationship yet?
I think so. Because this is just, like, sweet little...
Okay, yeah, like, I see that.
Like, I don't think fluff has to come from necessarily, like, the relationship itself. I think it can also be circumstantial. Mm. So this is just very kind of, like...
But it's very flirty.
Yeah.
Can flirty be fluffy?
I think so.
Nice.
I think the distinction there is that the flirting is very romantic in a weird way, and not, like... It's not like, ooh, I want to get with you. It's like, oh, I kind of want to, like...
I want to get with
I want to No, it's like, I want to, like, take you on a date or something. Like, it's more sort of sweet, and it's not...
Okay,
you know
that's
what
what
I
it
mean?
is. Yeah, it's sweet, and not, like, lecherous.
Right. That wasn't the word I was going to go with.
That's the one that came to my head.
It's the difference between meeting someone at the library and meeting someone at the bar. You know, where it's like a little bit...
That's why I take a book to the bar.
That's also why you're single.
Oh.
Yikes. I'm also single.
You've been so mean to me this episode. Yes, but you're asexual.
I know. I apologize for the thing that I just said that was really mean.
No, that's okay. It was a good burn. High five.
I felt it happening and I was like, I have to say this now that I've thought it, but it's kind of mean.
It's amazing. I loved it.
Okay. Woo. What would you rate Friday evenings at the library with Quentin?
I would say a 3.4.
Okay.
Yeah, it was solid. Good. It hit, like, it scratched the little librarian edge.
Yeah.
I wish it was longer. Even though I said I just loved the fact that it was not, like, angsty or, like, it didn't hurt at all. I do wish that it was a little more dependent on who they were as characters and that it wasn't just, like, we can plug anyone. Like, Derek and Styles and Harry and Draco.
Yeah. Because it truly could have been anybody.
Yeah.
But it could be, like, OCs that you don't know, like, anything about, and it would probably be just the same.
This is a good launching point. I hurt so much, Aaron, because I think... my favorite story I've ever read online is called The Library, and it has a librarian in it. It's original, though. It's original fiction. And so I was so desperately hoping that I would find a fan fiction equivalent of it.
Sorry, buddy.
Boy, did I not.
You can still send me it. I'll still read it.
I will at some point. It destroys me every time. I had the hardest time. People, you all need to start tagging your fics correctly.
Right.
Like, I live off of the search function, so if you didn't tag your library fic as an alternate universe library or librarians, I was not going to find it. Oh. I went through, like, every which variation I could think of on Archive around, like, librarians, lowercase library, just a shit ton of things. And I just kept reading the same fan fictions over and over. There was this one that was really promising. It was a One Direction fanfic. It was so long.
Oh my god.
And also, there's like a strange obsession with people. I want to know if it's... Please, write in. Let me know. Is there an obsession in the fanfiction community for like in Library AU specifically, for one of them to be like a children's librarian?
Oh, I think so.
Because there's so many of them.
Now that you say that, you're not, like, yeah.
There was so many of them, like, oh, Harry Styles is a child librarian, like a children's librarian.
He's a 12-year-old librarian.
He's a 12-year-old. Someone write this fic. I would love it.
Yikes.
Oh, man. Yeah, but it's so... Yeah. There's so many of those. And I read a really long one that was One Direction. It was Harry Styles, and he was working in, like, the children's section of a New York Public Library.
I wonder if it's because, for most of us, the primary librarians that we ever interacted with were as children.
Oh... That's fascinating.
Yeah. And so it's like a character that you're like, yeah, you're pretty warm and inviting and like whatever.
That's a good thought.
You know?
Yeah, because I am antisocial, so I didn't talk to anyone in the library.
Fair.
But I also went until... I keep going to libraries.
Oh. I wanted to be a person who went to libraries. I am not a person who goes to libraries.
Well, we gave it a shot.
We did. I don't know. I always wanted to be a book person, and I'm not a book person. Like, I always, you know what I mean? And, like, I used to read a lot as a kid and was really into reading, like, to the point where I used to get in trouble for reading in class.
Same.
And then I kind of went to high school and college, and it just beat it out of me, because you have to read stuff that you don't want to do. And then I just never really picked it back up.
I go through phases where, like, I'm, like, read, book, and then, like, I can't read another book. I'm like, so my morning commute is like I have a cycle of things. So it's like either I'm sleeping on the metro, and then once that phase is done, I'm listening to podcasts on the metro, and once that phase is done, I'm reading a book on the metro, and once that phase is done, I'm sleeping on the metro.
So that's the cycle.
Yeah, I think we're in the book reading session currently.
Nice.
Yeah, so I was reading this fan fiction, this One Direction fan fiction, and it was like really long, and it was cool, and it was like really well developed and executed. Holy shit, was the dialogue awful.
Oh no.
It was awful. I was like, oh no. But it was like, it was so well developed. I was like, oh, maybe I'll send it and we can plow through it. But then like their relationship kind of developed not organically. Like it was very much like, oh, they're just like, they find each other hot. Kiss, kiss, kiss. And I was like, broke my heart. And that was a problem I had with a lot of Library AUs. I had the hardest time. There was like a lot of really well developed world and great like characterization. And then they opened their big fat mouths and it was awful.
Yeah. I also think dialogue is the hardest thing to write well.
That's so interesting because I feel like I can only write dialogue.
Interesting.
Everything else I can't.
I think it's harder to get the voice of somebody correct than it is to get prose right.
That's
a lot of the time, or at least
fair.
that has been my experience. And I think a lot of the time when I read fanfic, where it falls apart for me is dialogue, which we've talked about before. So it's interesting that you have the opposite problem when you're writing.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah.
Also, I didn't know you write.
You know, every now and then I dabble.
Oh my god!
I might have already told you this, but I'm gonna spoil this because I can't wait. So, Aaron, here's my plan: is one day I'm going to send you a fic that I've written under a nom de plume. And I'm not going to tell you it's mine until after you've rated it.
I mean, though.
I know. I love it. Listeners, I can't wait for the drama that this will start. It's going to be like after you're like, I don't want to rate it. And then I'll be like, that was my fic. It's going to be great.
I'm already terrified. Oh, no.
It's going to be amazing.
Our whole friendship is going to ride on this.
No, it's going to be amazing. I love it.
How much fanfic have you written?
Oh, not a ton. Just a few fics. There's usually one-shots. I had like a really long one that is just stuck in work in progress.
Oh, yeah.
For forever.
It took me 5 years to finish one, which was a lot.
It's hard.
It's not good.
Let's send it to each other.
No.
Let's do it.
No. I'm not going to send you my teenage Panic at the Disco fanfiction.
Nothing would make me happier.
No. You're not getting it. That is deep on a hard drive somewhere.
Send the Newsies one.
Oh, yeah, I could.
Send the Newsies
that
one.
doesn't qualify because it's technically original fiction. Because I technically changed the name.
I didn't know that. I
wrote it as a quote-unquote novel. So I changed the name.
Oh, adorable.
But they are definitely rip-offs of the Newsies characters. And that was before I had the internet, so I didn't know what fanfiction was.
Oh, interesting.
I did it organically. Yeah.
Organically a fanfiction person.
It was just like a thing that I wrote, and I was like I was so into the Newsies universe that I wrote my own like female OC and like story or whatever. And I was like, this is great! And then I got the internet and I never wrote again. No, that's not true. I wrote some stuff. I wrote an interesting Criminal Minds fanfic at one point that, like, was actually good. It needs some editing. In a much better ending.
Do you want me to be your beta?
No. I said that way too quickly.
That's okay.
Yeah, it was an interesting premise that I'm, like, going back. I'm like, actually, that had some weight, but I never finished it, so.
That's fair.
Yeah, I'd never finished any fanfics. And then I used to write, like, MCR one-shots and stuff. I love it. Oh, my God. My emo phase is real. And also, Green Day, Fall Out Boy, and Weezer are going on tour next summer, and I'm, like, losing my little emo mind.
Together?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, they're coming to Nats Park. They're doing, like, a stadium tour. Yeah.
Oh.
So, yeah, that's a thing that's happening. Anyway, it has nothing to do with the
I know.
fic you sent me. Yeah, okay. So, moving right along.
But wait. Oh, sorry, really quick. Notice, these additional tags, Hogwarts. And that's it. That's all the additional tags. So how did I find this Googling? I had to Google.
Oh my God. You're right.
Yeah.
Yike. He sent me Harry Potter fanfic.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Stepping back about 8 steps. The fic that Alan sent me is called The Mystery of the Dead Man's Curse by Astor Danced 77.
A Star Dance.
Oh. Yeah, you're right. A Star Danced 77. I'm going to leave that in because it's fun. The summary is an unsolved mystery, an ancient curse, and a new librarian. Harry is back at Hogwarts where strange things are afoot! ! Featured books, Gadding with Ghouls and other titles of the unforgettable Gilderoy Lockhart. Which is great.
I love it.
There was a cover. It starts with a fake cover of Gadding with Ghouls, cover designed by Dyson Rules. It was presumably also on AO3, and it's quite funny. So as mentioned, this is Harry Potter fanfic. I want to start. I loved this fanfic.
Yes!
I thought it was delightful. You're right that it's not actually tagged Librarian fanfic, Librarian AU.
Yeah.
But it's great. So it starts in Auror Potter's office. And Harry has been an Auror for several years at this point. They've like graduated and or Hogwarts is over, like that. It's past the point of like Hogwarts and all that kind of stuff. And Harry is like deep in paperwork and bureaucracy, and he's like elbows deep in it. And it's just like, my calendar is blocked up for 2 weeks. Do not speak to me. And then Nora shows up and is like, I'm Auror Potter. And he's like, shush, leave me alone. I got paperwork to do. And she's like, Professor McGonagall is here to see you. And he went, I'm going. And so he like runs to go see Professor McGonagall at the other side of the ministry in the interrogation room that Nora has very stupidly put her in, which is fine.
You know, she deals.
Yeah, Harry runs across the ministry building to go fix this problem and go say hi because you do not make Professor McGonagall wait.
No.
At this now point, Headmistress McGonagall.
Yes!
And McGonagall is sitting there very primly and is like, hello, Potter. And Harry's like, Professor, I'm so sorry. Like, what do you... he's very flustered. And McGonagall is like, I'm in a position that is regrettably familiar. I am in search of a Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. And Harry's like, but I thought the curse was broken when Voldemort died. And Professor McGonagall was like, yeah, we all kind of thought so. Can I continue to tell you this story, please? And Harry's like, yep, sure, I have been cowed by this. Yep, And McGonagall's like, well, we thought the curse had been broken, but it hasn't. Our last 3 Defense Against the Dark Arts teachers have left after a year for various reasons. We've had a dearth of qualified teachers, and frankly, we don't have a lot of money to offer long-term prospective employees. So I'm not surprised you weren't aware, given how busy you are, and that probably Hogwarts is not a place that you want to, like, revisit in your memory, given when you last were there. But, we've lost our 3, and, to very weird things. The first one was forced to leave due to the ill health of an elderly relative. The second one had an unfortunate incident with a bludger. And then the last resignation was so odd that she was like, there's something weird here. And Harry's like, so what happened? And he was like, and Professor McGonagall was like, pregnancy. And Harry's like, oh yeah, I guess so. Like, that would be something. Yeah. Doesn't really get it. And McGonagall goes, Professor Macaulay was a man. And Harry's like, is that normal in the wizarding world? Is that just something I don't get? And McGonagall's like, nah.
It is not.
It is not. So Harry's like, well, I can put you in touch with some curse breakers. Like, what do you want me to do? And McGonagall's like, no, I need you. Like, I'm here to ask if you will teach for the year.
Yeah.
And Harry's like, I'm very flattered, but also very underqualified. Are you sure there's no one else in the world that can do this? And McGonagall's like, are you saying that you have insufficient experience with the dark arts to teach some children how to, like, throw a protective spell? And Harry's like, no, but, like, I've only been an Auror for 5 years, and, like, whatever. I'm only 26. And McGonagall is like, I'm aware of that, Mr. Potter. I met you a few days after you were born. Which is very funny. And then Harry's like, well, I also don't have any experience teaching. And McGonagall's like, well, I will have you remember that almost all of Dumbledore's army passed their Defense Against the Dark Arts OWLs, and basically no one else in your year did. You are clearly a good teacher, and I need you. That's the deal.
Yeah.
And you have really good investigation skills. And Harry's like, okay. And McGonagall's like, Hogwarts needs you. And that's kind of what gets Harry on board.
Yeah.
Which is fun.
Because he's a hero. He has a hero complex.
He does have a hero complex. And he's also, like, Hogwarts will always call him home. Like, that's kind of where that is. Like, that's very in character. So he goes to, like, back to hang out with Ron and Hermione and their daughter, Rose. And they're kind of talking through the day. And it's like, well, what did McGonagall want? And Harry's like, well, she wants me to teach. She wants me to, like, you know, she wants me to go teach Defense Against the Dark Arts. And Hermione's a little like, I'm sure you can, but, like, what? Is that a good idea? Like, aren't you a little young? Like, and Harry's like, I don't think I can say no. Which is fair. It's super last minute, which is crazy. And then
right, it's like 2 weeks.
Ron is like, don't you even think of handing all of your work over to me. Because Ron is also an Auror. And Harry's like, I don't really have a choice. I'm just gonna, like, up and leave in 2 weeks. And Harry's like, oh, I'll give it to Neville. It'll be fine. And that's how you find out Neville is also an Auror. Mm-hmm. But Hermione's like, no, you're not gonna give it to Neville. And Harry's like, why? And Hermione's like, do you never talk to Neville outside of work? And Harry's like, no, actually, I'm a terrible person. And Hermione's like, you can't give it to Neville. And they're like, okay, that's weird, but sure. Oh, and Hermione also brings up, are you worried that it might hurt your career as an Auror? Because you are being groomed for deputy head Auror. And Harry's like, how do you know that? I haven't really talked to you about this. And you haven't been to the ministry since March. And Hermione's like, oh, I had lunch with Hannah Abbott. And it's like, Hannah's dating Neville. And they're together, and, like, she works at the Leaky Cauldron, and it's, like, and Harry's, like, kind of dumb about it. It's like, how does Hannah know?
How would a pub owner hear the Ministry gossip?
And then Ron goes, I think you've answered your own question there, mate. Which, bless. I will say one thing about this fic that I think bears saying straight up is that I felt like they were all pretty out of character.
Yes.
Ron is way more, like, smooth and
exactly.
kind of, like, even keel and, like, with it than he ever is, really. Not that Ron is not a smart character, but that he's never been his strength is actually in social dynamics and things like that.
Right.
Not necessarily in being particularly, like, intuitive or cunning or anything like that. He's usually a little bit of, like, a blunt axe.
Exactly.
Hermione is very, she's very sort of yielding in a lot of ways, and like in the sense where she's very much like raising her daughter, and she's in women's groups, and she's just kind of like doing her thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm surprised that Hermione's not working in this fic.
Oh yeah, good point.
I'm surprised that she would be contented that way. It's sort of she's living somewhat of a passive version of her life. I don't think it's a bad thing, but I think it's very different for her.
Agreed.
And she also doesn't come on. She usually has stronger opinions about things.
Yeah.
She usually tells Harry what to do a lot more.
Yes.
And she doesn't in this. She very much lets him figure it out on his own, which is very different. Harry is also very reasonable in a way that Harry tends not to be.
So true.
Yeah. So, from the start, in the way that they're sort of talking about this at the beginning, I'm like, either this author is presuming that you have grown up significantly in 5 years and changed pretty fundamentally from that growth, or it's just out of character.
Yeah.
And that is what it is. It didn't take me out of it, but I was like, Ron being reasonable? Particularly Ron.
Right.
But also Harry being so thoughtful and, like, thinking before he does things?
Right.
I'm confused.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So anyway, they basically are like, well, I guess you're going.
Yeah, bye.
Yeah. And so it explains that, you know, Ron, Harry, and Neville had all joined the Auror group after Voldemort had been defeated. And they were sort of they were supposed to be the next generation of defenders of the wizarding world, but it wasn't really what Harry thought it was going to be, so he's a little discontent with it. And he doesn't like that it feels like you're always catching the person after they've done something terrible.
Yeah, it's like cleanup instead of prevention.
And I was like, there was a piece of me that was like, are you going to go, like, weird vigilante? Like, this is a little odd. But he didn't actually mean it that way. What he meant was the Aurors felt so far removed from the communities they served that you couldn't tell when somebody was, blossoming into a threat until it was too late.
Exactly.
Where if you had somebody who knew what was going on in a community and was connected and all those sorts of things, you might be able to see a pattern before it gets to be too late. So that's what he's kind of discontent with, is that he was like, I don't want there to be another Voldemort. I want to catch Voldemort before, like, when he's doing the small stuff.
While he's still Tom Riddle.
Right. And that's not what we're doing here.
Exactly.
So he doesn't really know how Hogwarts is going to fit into that, but he knows, he kind of takes the opportunity to get away from it for a little bit. So he basically says yes, and it's cool, and it's a whole thing. He talks to Neville, and come to find out Professor Sprout is retiring from Hogwarts, so Neville is going to go teach at Hogwarts,
too. We love herbology Professor Neville.
I love that. He needs to do that so
100%.
much. And that's the first time that they have a real conversation outside of work for the first time, and Neville's like, yeah, I've been really discontent. I don't really want to do this. And Harry's like, what?
Which was another thing of, like, I think Neville is also very out of character. He seems so, like, confident and comfortable with himself. Yeah. In a way that I don't know that Neville ever would be. Yeah,
I do feel like of the out of characterness of them all, Neville's felt less distant from where he ends up at the end of the series, because I think Neville has the biggest growth arc through the series. He starts as that very terrified kid who is still determined to do the right thing no matter what, and he ends up slaying the fucking snake, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, he goes for it. And I would agree that tends to be, you know, he's a more timid kind of strength and bravery, but I think that one, I was like, I could see Neville settling into himself like this more than I could see the other three settling into themselves like this based on who they are at their core. I get that. So Neville was the least sort of out of character for me, but I also really wanted Neville to get with Luna in the series, and that didn't happen, so I'm bitter. It's fine. J.K. Rowling, fight me. Fight me about a lot of stuff, but...
Is that the molehill you want to die on?
No, I don't have time for that. So they realize that Neville is going to Hogwarts. Hannah's staying in London, which is like a thing.
Yeah.
And Harry's going to Scotland, and Ron and Hermione are staying in London, and that's a whole thing. So they go, and then there's, some beginning of school year, like, staff meetings.
Which I love.
Which is hilarious. So they, Harry moves back to Hogwarts into some quarters, and he has a thing. He has to sign his contract, which is really funny. And then...
And that's the whole thing, too, because he's been taught, like, he has to read the whole thing because of an R, and he's like, give me a moment. I just gotta make sure I read through all of this.
Yeah, and he gets halfway through it, and then he's like, nah, it's fine.
Like, I trust McGonagall.
That was the most in-character thing in this whole fic. I was like, yeah, you get halfway through it, and then you're like, it's fine.
Yep.
So he signs it, and it's cool. He goes off on his way. And then he goes and settles in, and then there's basically like a drinks before, like, dinner kind of thing for the staff. And he goes and sees Hagrid, who's still there. Yeah. And Madame Pomfrey, who's, like, way nicer to him. And, like... He goes and he sees some of the, like, teachers that he grew up with, and then also some new people, and he's introduced to people. And then, and Slughorn is there.
Oh, yeah.
From across the room, he sees Draco Malfoy.
Dun, dun, dun!
And then he's talking to Neville. And then he walks over, and Harry is like, "Oh my god!" And Neville and McGonagall are talking to Draco, and Harry walks over and is like, "Headmistress, Neville," and Draco's like, "Welcome to Hogwarts, Professor Potter." And that is how you learn that Draco Malfoy is at Hogwarts.
Yes!
Wow. Also deeply out of character.
Much wow.
Much wow. Very wow. So it's cool. So they do the sorting feast, and that's a whole thing. They kind of actually gloss over a lot of the stuff that we would recognize as, like, the student experience of Hogwarts. I think in a smart way, because the author recognizes that they don't need to rehash it.
Yeah.
Because we, like, know what the sorting feast is.
Yeah.
All us nerds.
That's true.
We know. We don't need to be told. So he goes, and then, so the sorting feast is over, and Harry's looking at Draco the whole time, and, like, is not being subtle about it. And so... Like, Harry marches over to Neville's quarters after the feast is over, and he's like, oh my god. And Neville's like, would you like some tea? And Harry's like, why did you not tell me that Draco was gonna be here? Why are you on a first-name basis with Draco Malfoy? He beat the shit out of you when you were kids and, like, terrorized you. And Neville reveals that actually, like, Draco had apologized to him, like, out of nowhere, basically sent him a letter of apology, and originally Neville had basically thrown it in the garbage, and then Draco sent another one, is like, did you get my letter of apology?
For my last letter of apology.
Yeah, I'm very sorry. Please, I just need to know that you got it. And then Neville responded back and was like, yeah, it's fine, whatever. Or not, it's fine, but, like, yeah, I got it. Leave me alone. Yeah. And then Draco sort of, like, started just corresponding back and forth very friendly with him, and, like, sent him a couple books, and some, like, particularly some Muggle books that he likes, and, it was, they became kind of friends in this weird way.
Yeah.
And Harry's like, what the fuck? What are you talking about?
What is this?
Yeah. And then Neville's like, well, why didn't you or Harry's like, why didn't you tell me this? And I was like, because I didn't want you to do this. I didn't want you to freak out. Like, you are clearly freaking out. You dumbass. And then,
amazing.
So he's like, would you give him a chance just to show you that he's not the spoiled little brat that we knew growing up? You don't have to like him, but give him a chance, because you never know what could come of it.
Yeah.
And Harry's like, fine. How did he become a librarian, though? I have questions. And Neville's like, you'll have to talk to him about it. They sort of end the night, and it's fine. Skip ahead a little bit, and all the fourth-year girls keep basically harassing Harry and being like, he's so cute! And Harry keeps having to dodge all these, like, fourth-year crushes, and he's just like, oh my god. And Neville is like, it's like sixth year all over again! Hee. And Harry's like, I hate all of this! Would y'all leave me alone? This is bad.
Can't relate.
Yeah, no, I can't. He ends up going to the Leaky Cauldron, and, like, everybody's in town and sort of hanging out together. Dean Thomas is snuggled up with Ginny Weasley.
Of course.
And that's where you kind of start to learn that Ginny and Harry are not together. And, like, 'cause it's not clear up until then, but she's noticeably absent up until this point. And then you're like, oh, okay, there's something going on there. And then, so it's a birthday party
I think it's Hermione's birthday.
It's Hermione's birthday. And Harry shows up and, brings her Gadding with Ghouls, which is a Lockhart book that autographed that he found in his chambers. He was like, I don't know how this survived the battle and the cleanup, but I have a whole bunch of them.
Here you go.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous. So they end up at the bar and they're having a good time. They're just chatting and catching up and having whatever, making fun of each other as friends do. And then it comes up, Ron is like, so how's it working out with Malfoy? Like, that was an experience. And that was the moment where I was like, where's Ron Weasley? What have you done with him?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I was like, Ron hates Draco.
Exactly.
Absolutely hates him and would never be okay with him because that was predating the Hogwarts stuff.
Exactly.
And yeah. So he just is like they're just like talking about it and he's like, I don't know, I don't think I've said more than a couple words to him this whole time. Like, we just kind of like hover around each other and pretend to socialize. And then Hermione starts to defend Draco. And I was like, bitch, you punched him in the face. What is this? I'm confused. It was very weird. I was like, okay. And then they just keep talking about how weird it is that Malfoy works there and is a librarian. And they're like, well, I guess he works there and it's fine. And, but all the girls in school like him too. And it's really funny and whatever. And then eventually, they get to sort of talking about how, like, the portrait of Lockhart keeps flirting with Malfoy, and as does the ghost of Moaning Myrtle.
Yeah.
And Hermione is like, Lockhart would have better luck than Moaning Myrtle. And everyone's like, huh? And then George goes, Hermione thinks Draco Malfoy is gay. And Harry's like, what? And it's like a whole thing, and they have this whole conversation about whether or not Draco is gay. And I was like, this is kind of a weird moment in the fic for me, where it was just a little. It was a way of introducing this concept, but it felt very artificial in a weird way. Where I was like, I don't know that these characters would be this positive and like jovial about this conversation. Like,
that's fair.
How much work did Draco put into mending relationships with people? Like, I didn't buy it right off the bat.
Sure.
But it gives you a lot of helpful information, which is not only that most people, except for Harry, believe that Draco Malfoy is gay, which turns out to be true. Spoiler alert. But also Harry Potter is gay. Surprise! And is no longer with Ginny, because Ginny was like, you are gay. And he was like, you right. And then they broke up. And then Dean Thomas was like, thanks for that, buddy. And that's what happened.
That's what you missed on Glee.
Yeah, really. And then, like... They have to explain gaydar to people because they're like, whatever.
Because no one knows what a radar is.
Nope. And it's a whole thing. And then they kind of move on. Like, the conversation moves around. But it plants the idea in Harry's mind that Draco is gay. Which is very exciting.
Interesting.
Very interesting. So skip ahead a little bit. It's also revealed, sort of, Harry stays overnight. And then the next day...
at Ron and Hermione's.
Well, it's just sort of like an offhanded comment of like... Oh, how'd you sleep? And he's like a log. I really needed it. And you're like, okay, that sets up a pattern for later, which we can talk about later. Ron starts baking. I was like, what the fuck is this?
Oh, you don't see Ron as a baker? He does not have the patience to be a baker.
No. So Harry and Hermione over tea are talking about whatever. And, Hermione's like, well... why don't you go talk to Draco? Like, what is holding you back from talking to Draco? And Harry's like, I'm keeping the peace. It's fine. And Hermione's like, you're ignoring him and hoping he'll go away. And Harry's like, well, last time I saw him, he was being sentenced to 2 years of house arrest, along with his mother. And my testimony put him there. So, like, how do you want me to broach that? Tell me. Because I don't know. And Hermione's like, is that all? It's just small talk issue? That's fixable. And Harry's like, I'm gonna fucking murder you. And he's like, well, it's weird. It's a weird place to be. And that's kind of valid. So they have a whole conversation about, like, Hermione having made some amends with some Slytherins through, like, her women's groups and stuff like that. And knowing that Malfoy had been dealt some pretty shit cards and was struggling with them. And that he had been trying to actively make amends with people.
Including her.
He also sent her a letter. And that she was like, maybe it's worth, trying to, like, recognize that people can grow and change and, like, give him a shot. Yeah. Which is exactly what Neville said, but in a slightly more, sort of a straightforward way, in a way that I think Harry hears a little bit more, particularly from Hermione. And Harry's like, do you know why he's a librarian? And Hermione's like, no, it's driving me crazy.
That's why you need to talk to him.
Yeah, so finally Hermione says, just stop searching for scapegoats to punish because you can't punish Voldemort. That's a friend moment of like, ouch, true.
Yeah.
And Harry's just like, I hate it when you're reasonable because you're right. So, Hermione's like, just give it a shot. There has to be something there. Professor McGonagall gave him the job.
Yeah.
And, just give him a chance. So he goes back to Hogwarts, and Harry, as he's at the castle, has a really hard time falling asleep, and he has insomnia. So he starts reading that stupid Gadding with Ghouls book from Lockhart. And he has these really awful nightmares, and he wakes up, and he's just, like, absolutely thrown, and he's like, okay, well, maybe I should go get another Lockhart book, because that one put me to sleep.
Yeah.
And I'll go get other ones. So he goes to the library pretty late at night and finds the Lockhart books in fiction. Bless Draco. And Draco is there and is like, can I help you?
Excuse me.
Yeah, and Harry's like, sorry, I couldn't sleep, and I came looking for something stupid to read. And Draco's like, oh, do you want some help? And he's like, nope, I'm good. And Draco's like, actually, I recommend Holidays with Hags. It's really great, and sends him kind of off on his way. And they have this, it's a really just sort of like companionable, quiet little moment together.
Mm-hmm.
But Harry goes back the next day and was like, I brought the book that I took out in so you can check it out properly. And Malfoy's like, it's fine. A note would have been cool.
Yeah.
You don't have to do this. And Harry's like, well, I forgot. I thought you might need it. Something. It's like kind of this awkward, like trying to get a conversation starting, but it's not working. And then, again, they're starting to build up this conversation or whatever.
Harry asks, how did you know that I was in the library?
Yes. So Harry asks, how did you know I was in the library? And Malfoy is like, I put a detection spell on the door because sometimes the children try to sneak into the library, like you did with Granger.
Wink, wink.
But you had Hermione to keep you from the really dangerous stuff, and these children are dumb.
They do not have the smartest witch.
No. So, it's kind of the first moment that Harry realizes that Malfoy is, like, actually kind of got something going here and, like, actually pretty good at his job. So, scooting on ahead, Harry continues to have insomnia.
And he gets, so Ron and Hermione are supposed to come to the castle to help try to looking for the curse. Because that's still why he's here. Like, his assignment is like, I'm here to teach for the year, but I'm really still like an Auror looking for this curse and how to break it. So Ron comes with his brother Bill because Rose is sick and Hermione had to stay home, which is one of those other things where I think, like, I don't know that she would have, but who knows.
And Bill is also a curse breaker, or like
in
Bill
Egypt,
is, in Egypt, and he generally has some knowledge about these things. So Ron's like, he's helpful too. They don't find anything.
Mm-hmm.
They start realizing that they need to ask for some research help.
Mm-hmm.
And who do you go to for help in research?
Google.
Librarians.
Oh.
Yike. Incorrect. This is a Librarian AU.
I'm sure a librarian would also Google.
Yeah. Well, they go to Malfoy. Harry goes to Malfoy.
Yes.
Because he finally kind of realizes that he needs more information than he can acquire on his own. Malfoy knows the library. He is going to be able to help him in a way that he just needs.
Mm-hmm.
So he asks him for his help. And they have a conversation where Harry's like, well, I need a little bit of help shedding some light on some stuff. And Draco's like, oh, the curse? And Harry's like, how do you know about that? And Draco's like, Mom, McGonagall told me that that's probably why you were going to be here. Which is also how Harry realized that Draco knew Harry was going to be there before Harry knew that Draco was there.
Yep.
And he was, like, real bitter about it. And Harry kind of stumbles his way through talking about, well, we thought the curse was left by Voldemort, and then Draco's like, so you want me to tell you about Voldemort?
Oh, that's right.
And Harry's like, no. I literally just need your help with, like, curses. Like, I just need to understand. We don't know why the curse still exists, given that Voldemort is dead.
Yes.
Truly well and in the ground, dead. And that should have ended it, but it didn't. So I need help understanding how curses operate. Can you help me with that? And Malfoy was like,
tell
great,
me, bro.
Sure, yeah. I didn't super want to get into, like, the inner workings of Voldemort's mind. I also couldn't really tell you. But, this is great. So they do that, and it's a whole thing. And Malfoy does a thing where he's like, I know you want to ask me about why I'm a librarian. And Harry's like, oh, no, it's none of my business. Yeah. And he's like, I know Granger asked too.
Exactly, Granger must be beside herself.
Yeah, and Harry's like, nope, and runs. And it's like, oh my god.
Incredible.
So they start researching curses and trying to figure out, like, Draco's like, well, how much information do you have about Voldemort's role in this? Are you positive it was him? What's going on? And Harry's like, well, we are reasonably certain that he left a curse on something while he was here when he applied for the Defense Against the Dark Arts position, but we don't really know. He could have gone anywhere in the castle, and it could have been anything.
Right.
The places we know he went were the headmaster's office and the room of requirement. Draco's like, you don't have to worry about the room of requirement, because I set it on fire. And they have to, like, navigate some awkward moments about their past together. Yeah. And they realize they should go back through the records and try to figure out what everybody has in common. Mm-hmm. Basically, Malfoy is just really helpful in a way that is really thoughtful and, like, he's really smart. And in this sort of conversation, they start talking about Draco and his house arrest and his mom. And Harry's like, I tried to have her your mom's sentence overturned for what she did for me. And Malfoy's like, I didn't know that. Thank you.
Interesting.
Yeah, she would have served the years anyway because I was locked up. But, like, basically, the Ministry took everything we owned. I was on house arrest. And I learned how to be a librarian when I got our stuff back and had to reorganize our personal library. Which is, like, a really stupid way.
But listen to, like, what he says. It's like, I was so angry I tossed the box across the room and books came spilling out. I picked up one, then another, and started putting them back on the shelves. After the third box, it seemed sensible to do it in some kind of order, so I created some categories. And then it seemed like a good idea to know what books we had, so I created a catalog. And I was like, that is the best, like, stumbling onto, like, I guess I'll do this.
Yeah.
Well, obviously they need to be alphabetical.
Yeah.
Am I a librarian?
Yeah. So so that's, like, how he became a librarian. I was like, this is anticlimactic. Yeah. Like, I was expecting a better story, but okay.
I love it.
So Harry learns a lot about Malfoy in that particular thing, and is like, again, there's more to him than I thought. They start regularly combing through information in the library as much as they can to try to figure out this curse. Oh, and then they go to the staff Christmas party.
Yes.
So they've been building on this sort of, like, working relationship. They go to the staff Christmas party. And Harry, bless him, is not one for subtleties. And goes to Neville and is like, do you know why Malfoy apologizes to everyone? And literally Neville is like, God's sakes, it's a party. Would you chill out for 10 minutes? And Harry's like, I'm not investigating. I'm just curious. We're talking about it. Like, everyone got one except me.
Why didn't I get one?
And why didn't I get one? And Neville's like, have you talked to him about it? And Harry's like, no. And it's like...
He's like, have you ever apologized to him? Maybe he thought you were pretty even.
Yeah, Neville was like, I don't know that he necessarily owes you more than you owe him, because you kind of gave as good as you got. Like, a lot of the stuff that he apologized for was stuff where he really, like, did wrong against people, as opposed to sort of giving back and forth. Mm-hmm. And Harry's like, he did break my nose, and, like... you know, do all sorts of stuff. And then he's like, he remembers that he almost killed him with the Sectum Sempra thing. He's like, oh, actually, maybe we are.
You have a point.
Yeah, maybe that's real. And then, but he kind of backs off and he's like, well, do you know when he started apologizing? And then he realizes, and Neville's like, well, he found some kind of muggle book about making amends or something. And Harry's like, so you mean a 12-step program? Did it have steps involved? And Neville's like, yeah. Or Malfoy has walked over at this point. And Harry's like, did it have a list of steps, Malfoy? And Malfoy's like, yep. And Harry's like, how many did it have? Perhaps 12? And Malfoy's like, yeah, actually, yeah, that sounds right. So they realize that he's going through the steps of basically an AA process with all of this, which is actually kind of great. Like, I think that's really funny and really well done. So Malfoy is at the point where he's trying to take responsibility for what he has done in the past. And that's where the apologies come from, is making amends and, you know, recognizing harm.
It's something that I think we've talked about on the show before with other Harry Potter AUs I've sent.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Yeah. I think it's important when you have characters who are evil or who have done harm to other people in the canon, that in fanfic you recognize that in some way and don't necessarily gloss over it. Even if it is to say that, like, it is still a facet of their relationship moving forward that is unresolved. I think when you, in fanfic, if you don't deal with it at all, you're just glorifying the ship. You're just, you know, shipping it for the sake of the, like, kissy kiss.
Kiss kiss.
Yeah, which is fine, but sure. I think the good ones really reckon with that. and figure out how to redeem those characters in a way that feels legit. Harry accidentally tells Draco that he almost killed Ron with poison mead.
Oh, that's right.
In school, which Draco didn't realize actually happened.
Yeah. Because he was trying to poison Slughorn, but then Slughorn was fine, and he never saw the fact that Ron almost died of it. So Malfoy was clueless about the fact that the mead was drunk.
Yeah. So Draco goes and writes an apology to Ron.
Yep.
Which I was like, oh my god, okay, cool. So Draco is actually making very real attempts to make up for the sins of his past, which is kind of cool. They keep...
Well, so in that Christmas conversation, they have the moment where Neville's like, Jesus Christ, you're adults, use your Christian names.
Yeah.
And so they start calling each other by their first names.
For the first time.
Yes.
And then Hermione...
No, this is for Christmas, because Harry's going to go spend Christmas with Hermione and Ron.
Yep.
He goes to their house, and no one is there. Hermione is gone out to do something, so he's alone. He takes a nap, and Hermione comes and's like, "Oh, having a nap?" And he's like, "Just resting my eyes." And she's like, "Oh, I take it you haven't been sleeping well." And Harry says, "Oh, Ron squealed, did he?"
Yeah, and that's the moment where Hermione is like, like, how long have you been having nightmares? Like, what's going on? Like, this, I'm worried about you. And kind of just, like, feeds him and, like, lets it go. I was like, Hermione would never let it go like that, but okay.
I wish she did a few times, but only when Harry lost his temper at her.
Yeah, I don't know. So they keep on keeping on in terms of, like, Harry rests up at the house and, like, kind of comes back into his own. Yeah. But also, Ron and Hermione keep, like, poking at the bear and being like, do you like him?
Kiss, kiss, kiss.
Do you like him? Which I was like, Ron would never. But okay, in this alt
universe. Put it in the box. Put it on the shelf.
Yeah. And Harry and Hermione as Muggle-born people, or like Muggle-raised people, have a laugh that like the Alcoholics Anonymous book is why Malfoy is like sending out apologies. They think that's really actually funny. But they also recognize that it's actually like a big step for somebody like Draco to do that, and that's kind of cool. And Ginny and Dean Thomas are going to move in together, and that's sort of revealed. So like Harry realizes that everybody is kind of moving forward in their lives in a way that he's not, and that's frustrating to him. But he can't really pin down what he's frustrated about quite yet. And then Hermione finally is like, when they get a moment alone and they're hanging out again, he's like, Hermione says, I think you've been cursed. And Harry's like, huh? And Hermione's like, have you had nightmares while you've been here? And Harry's like, no, I haven't.
Good catch.
Interesting. And Hermione's like, yep, I think they are a curse. And he was like, huh. So they realize that, and then they start talking about how they're going to have to talk to Draco about it. And then Ron just like bursts from the kitchen. He's like, please, if you're going to talk about Draco, just admit you want a bone. Yep. I can't with the like, but he's so nice anymore. Like, you're pining for the fjords. And Harry's like, what are you talking about? And Ron is like, I can't take it anymore. Just kiss him.
He's like, it's like living with a 13-year-old Ginny again. He never notices me. I feel like he just looks through me. I just want to be his friend, which I felt attacked by.
I know. And that's the moment where Ron is like, you like Malfoy. Clearly. Mm-hmm. And you are like, this is so dumb. And Harry's like, no, he's not gay. I just want to be his friend. And Hermione is like, first of all, he's gay. Second of all, you don't want to just be his friend. Like, stop it. How do you know he's gay? And Hermione's like, Pansy Parkinson told me. And he's like, when are you in touch with Pansy Parkinson? And she's like, in my women's group. And it's a whole thing. And, you know, Harry's just like, this is a weird fucking day. I'm under a curse. Apparently I have a crush on Draco Malfoy. Like, it's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing.
He goes back to Hogwarts, and they're, like, trumping along, like, going on, like, keep it on.
Yep.
And Harry and Draco keep on researching until February rolls around, and then it's Valentine's Day. Woo. And then Harry very stupidly tells Draco he has a date for Valentine's Day, quote unquote, when he's actually going and taking care of Rose for Hermione and Ron, so they can go on a real people date, like an adult.
Correct.
So he goes for Valentine's Day and takes care of the baby, and it's cool. Baby. And that's when Hermione sort of lets him know that she has sent Draco an invitation to Rose's first birthday party, so he's going to be there. And Hermione's like, or Harry's like, oh my god, you are the worst. You are clearly trying to set me up and this is annoying. And Hermione's like, oh well.
Yeah.
It's cool. Shit. They have a conversation about, like, what Harry wants to do next because the year is kind of coming to a sort of close.
Yeah,
and
coming up.
It's not really clear from that, and it's kind of clear that Harry isn't quite satisfied with anything in his life right now. So Hermione pushes at that a little bit, and he kind of takes a minute to think about it. And he's like, oh, yeah. He needs to go home and do work and all that kind of stuff. And then Harry sneaks into the library, goes back to Hogwarts, sneaks into the library, and Draco is freaking out because of this stupid invite to this 1-year-old birthday party.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's like, did you do this? Like, what happened? And Draco's like, Hermione Granger has invited me to her daughter's birthday party. Me. What? What is happening? And Harry's like, you did that all on your own, buddy. Like, I was not aware of that until she just told me. Pansy's gonna be there, though. And Draco's like, Pansy Parkinson? And he's like, yep. And Malfoy's like, I can't go. Ron will kill me. And he's like, nope. Ron actually is very excited for you to be on the Quidditch team, so Percy can't back out. So it'll be fine. And then there's gonna be a Quidditch game because Ron wants there to be a Quidditch game.
Yeah.
And it's just like this building sort of like relationship that's happening between the two of them that's now moving beyond just the research. It's moving also into, like, their lives are getting a little intertwined, and that's the thing. This is a long one-shot.
Yeah.
We've talked about this for too long.
I agreed.
I can't skip through it, though. I tried.
Just hit bullet points.
And then it's over.
So next is Rose's birthday party / Quidditch game.
Yeah. So
they play Quidditch.
They play Quidditch.
Harry Potter's a seeker again.
Harry Potter is a seeker. He wins the game!
Almost doesn't because he spent the whole game staring at Draco Malfoy up until he sees Bill, like, zooming along. He's like, oh shit! Here I go!
And then he grabs the snitch and he's like, woohoo!
Yeah.
And then he has a real reason to hug Draco and they do a whole team, like, whatever.
Yeah.
Which is super funny. Skip ahead to exams and stuff, and Draco and Harry are finally at a point where they're like, we have to be missing something about this stupid fucking curse. Like, there has to be something we're not considering. And, Harry is like, how does the curse know that it's who the Defense Against the Dark Arts teachers are?
Mm-hmm.
How do they figure this out? And Draco is like, did you put a curse in the position description? And it's like, well, maybe, but like, how does the curse has survived its caster, so it has to be on an object, but what object it is, it's not something that's been touched, blah, blah, blah. And then it occurs to Draco that the curse is connected to the contracts and the ledgers of Hogwarts itself, like the records. Mm-hmm. And if you say, like, anybody could say, you know, Harry Potter, the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor. Mm-hmm. Once that has been said and the records sort of within the realm of the records and it's legally binding, you are cursed. And that's how it kind of works out. I didn't fully understand the details or the mechanics of the curse, but I didn't really care by then. Sure.
So the thing is that the ledger itself is what's cursed. So the ledger auto-fills whenever there's a new position. Mm-hmm. So because it can't be the contract, obviously, because a new contract is drafted every time there's a new teacher. So once someone signs, Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, it gets updated on the ledger, and then the ledger is the thing that's cursed.
Yeah. So once you are on the Hogwarts ledger as the new teacher,
yes,
you are under the curse.
You boned.
Yeah, but not in a good way.
No.
So
unless you were that male pregnancy teacher, apparently.
Yike. So Harry and Draco go down to the ledger, and Harry can, like, sense that Voldemort's magic is there.
Yeah. And
goes to, like, cast a spell and destroy it like a fucking moron.
The most in character Potter.
Yeah. And Draco's like, Harry, no! And then it's just basically the spell happens, everything is still, there's, like, an explosion, it's bad.
Yeah.
The spell rebounds and knocks Harry out, and presumably causes some damage. Harry wakes up in Madame Pomfrey's care, which is a very familiar position for him to be in.
Deja vu.
And he has been wiped out by his spell backfiring on him. Mm-hmm. Because he was under the curse, he couldn't destroy it, like some kind of idiot. So Draco, comes to find out, Draco had saved him from the majority of the the pain of the impact, but he had also been quite hurt by it. And they had figured it out, like, Draco dragged his, like, unconscious ass up to, the thing. And
just grumbling the whole time.
Yeah, and managed to get him to safety because he could have gotten, the shock could have gotten him even if the curse didn't. So, the curse breakers come in. They realize that the curse was designed to exploit the weakness of the person, which is why Harry's getting nightmares. But,
again, would like to ask what the weakness of the person who got pregnant was.
Yeah, I have questions.
Many.
Who knows? So, everybody's like, well, Draco really saved you from this being a lot worse than it could have been. So Harry tries really hard to go see Draco, but he is bedridden because he is quite hurt.
Correct.
And Draco is also bedridden because he is also quite hurt.
Correct.
Eventually, they kind of see each other for a little bit, but Draco is really dodgy about it. Harry's in bed reading some letters that he's gotten from work, and Draco comes by and is really dodgy, and Draco's like, you look awful. And Harry's like, yeah, so do you, bud. And they're like, whatever. Draco's like, at least I got out of bed. Harry mentioned something about having to go, back to the ministry or the next assignment or, something like that. And Draco is like, all right, bye.
Got to go.
Very suddenly. And Hermione's like, Ron and Hermione have come to visit as well.
Yeah.
And they're all like, what's going on? He's like, I gotta go, bye. And leaves and starts avoiding him. He won't speak to him or whatever. Harry uses the Marauder's map to find him a couple days later. He's like, I can't take any more. He finds him. Again, disables the charm on the library to get in. Well, that's the thing
is because he kept looking in the library, but he could never find Draco. And he's like, where's he going? He uses the Marauder's map. He's like, oh, he's in the library. Weird. Goes to the library and was like, wait a minute. Yeah,
there's that stupid detection spell for the students. He's using it to keep me. And then, so he's talking to Draco. And he's like, thank you for saving my life. It's a whole thing. They go back to Professor Potter. And it's like, Harry's like, actually, it's not Professor anymore. It's Deputy Auror Potter. And Draco's like, congratulations. That's really great for you.
Yeah.
Harry's like, would you like to come to dinner in London when I go there? He's basically trying really hard to ask him out. And Draco's like, I will be busy. Thank you. And Harry's like, what if I'd really love to show you around Muggle London. It's a very cool thing. And Draco's like, I can't. He's kind of cracking. And then Harry's like, all right, I guess I'll see you in September then. Draco's like, huh? September? And he's like, yeah, I'll be at the sorting feast. I'm trying to convince Professor McGonagall to let me come and be basically a stand-in, policeman for the school. Basically, I am now in charge of community-based Auror programs, starting with a new program that I am setting at Hogsmeade.
Yes,
which means I live here now.
Surprise, bitch.
And Draco's like, yes! And Harry's still talking, and Draco just throws himself at Harry and, kisses him. And then they go and have sex.
Yes, that's wonderful.
All over the place. And, they actually kind of start having sex, and then Harry Potter falls off of the couch.
That's right.
And then they stop. It kind of stops everything, and they just, gentle it back a little bit. And they end up just being, cuddling, and, Draco was like, I'm really happy that you're staying. I was really hoping you would stay, and, I didn't want you to be separate. And Harry's like, yeah, this is great. And Draco's like, why would you do this for me? And he's like, I'm actually really not. Sarah's like, I didn't do this for you. I was already feeling pretty uninspired and unsettled with my life in the Auror program, and this is what I want to do to make it better. So I did this for me, but it's really convenient that it's going to be next to you. The where of it is you. And Draco's like, cool, I'll take that. And then they just cuddle on the couch, and that's the whole fic.
The end.
God, that was too long of a summary.
A little bit.
But it, I think it speaks to, this is a very wordy...
It is.
Very long one-shot.
Yeah.
It feels like it should be multi-chaptered.
Yeah.
But it also doesn't.
I also wonder, though, how much... I wonder what it would do for it, Because, you'd still be reading the same amount of words.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it.
Cool.
But it was really long. It's almost 30,000 words.
Yeah.
Which, for a one-shot, is pushing it.
Yeah.
I liked it, though.
I'm glad.
I think it was well written.
Cool.
I think it was good. My main criticism is that people are so out of character.
Agreed. 100%.
Draco, too.
Oh, 100%. He was too cuddly and passive. Never.
He was so nice.
Yeah,
and I was like, where's your kind of, part of what makes Drarry really
good is that they have that like fire and water dynamic. Like they will always clash, but in the best way.
Yeah, and you can still do that while still recognizing that Draco needs to make up for some stuff, and that Harry also has some things to make up for.
Right.
But I don't think you have to like edge it out so much or back away from it so much. So that would be my one criticism, is that it feels really out of character.
Agreed.
But it's still well written.
Cool.
I'll give it a solid 3.8.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
Yep. Cool.
This has been a long one.
I'm sorry.
No,
we're on such a roll.
We were, well, to be fair, you sent me 2,000 words and then 1,000 words.
I know.
So you sent me a tenth of one of my fics was.
I know. It was great.
It was wonderful.
Okay.
All right. Please rate us, review us on iTunes so that other people can see us.
Share this podcast with your friends.
Please.
We just want people to listen to this podcast and enjoy it.
Send in any recommendations you have for fics we should read or fandoms we should read. Tags?
Yeah, send us tag recs. That's a good idea. That's what we haven't asked for because we're running out.
We're running low on this list. Yeah. You'll need to help us.
Yep. The weirder the better, but like we will take them seriously.
Right, of course.
Is what's cool about it. So you can send us weird tags and we will try to find ones that are good.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a Twitter. Aaron loves it.
We do have a Twitter. I do love it. I'm not being convincing, but it's true. I do enjoy talking to people on Twitter. We have a Tumblr. I haven't posted to it in a while. Sorry, friends.
We're doing great.
Yep. We are on our way.
Yeah. We're getting there.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
All right.
Have a happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yeah, have some pie for us.
Yes.
Bye.
Right. Bye.